Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. Tonight's episode is an additional commentary on this idea I've had of a Yin-Yang civilization. I would say this Yin-Yang civilization, the idea came, the talk was Arrival of Civilization 2.0. In it, I made a very interesting observation that there has been conflict between dualistic forces in history. You can say that human morality is based on light and its absence. We have currently one civilization. And I consider a civilization to be the sum behavior of all societies. And this civilization of ours, it has opened its eyes through a patriarchal system. But I thought, what if we had designed a civilization similar to the yin-yang symbol, where in some sense there is two types of civilization, one which is matriarchal, one which is patriarchal, and there can be a transition between the two. Sometimes I look at phenomena, any phenomena, it could be anything, and I wonder about its reverse. It's kind of like part of design. Whatever you see, you can wonder instantly, the opposite of it. You have access to one side so you can perceive to some degree the other side. What does that mean? That means right now, we are being 8 billion visible bodies, or let me say it, we're being separate. What's a better example? I wanted to use this idea right now that we are 8 billion different bodies right now. If I was to, and separate minds, we are separate minds in 8 billion bodies. If I was to wonder about the opposite of that, it's as if like connecting everybody's head to a computer, technically rendering one being with 8 billion bodies. We become information based. That means, let's say right now we as human beings, consciousness is an attributeless, energetic, instantaneous presence. This attributeless, instantaneous presence of attention this biological existence is information in that attention. It's as if the mind is a spotlight and life and the world and everything is found in it. Now, this spotlight has control over genetical information. And so it feels as if we, in some sense, we can translate that. That means we can say either we are body, we are bodies or we are mind stuff. A new term, both of them together, mind stuff. A yin-yang civilization would be a civilization that provides the members, any members, whether human. I'm perceiving this beyond, by the way, way ahead of current where we are currently. In a yin-yang civilization, the citizen has a choice to live as a mind projecting a body, or as a body projecting a mind. To be a mind projecting a body, one can understand themselves as a mind being projected in a body. That means, imagine in the future there's some technology and a person could suddenly have a bunch of bodies. Let's say we realize the mind is not just local to the brain, it's a field. And this may be a bit of a chaotic idea, but I could see it, I don't know, in some way happening. That, you see, I feel right now we are considering we are an unknown mind in one body. I feel that we may experience a bunch of bodies. That means, can you imagine your attention simultaneously from a different body? That means, imagine two people were looking at each other and suddenly you could look from both people's eyes, you know? Pretty much, if Rene Descartes was right about the mind-body dualism, there's a potential to endlessly reconnect the endlessly realign body in a field of mind, if I can say. Civilization 2.0, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, pretty much it was, you can say, my strategy to bypassing extinction. I found a model, I found an idea that could work. I felt, for me, to me at least, it makes sense. But the idea is that first of all, Civilization 2.0 is a strategy to bypass extinction indefinitely. That means not inner extinction, but outer extinction. Inner extinction would be a human being pressing a nuke. It was from a mind-related incident that caused the outer realms to stop, you know? Pretty much, if we destroy ourselves, that's inner extinction. If nature destroys us, that's outer extinction. I perceived, again, I've spoken about this in other talks, but I'll do a recap here. Pretty much, I saw three phases to Civilization 2.0. The idea is that because we are on what we consider to be a two-dimensional plane, and 8 billion human beings feel there, even though we're on a sphere, but appearance-wise, it feels like we're living on a two-dimensional plane. So now the issue is we're becoming incredibly overpopulated, you know. We can fathom this, that as the future goes along, there's going to be way more people. So eventually we require to use three-dimensional space. So eventually we will have to resolve overpopulation, have to require to build sky cities. The phase, Civilization 2.0, is the idea for 2000 years we go live in our sky. That's phase one. Then phase two, while we're living in the sky, we heavenize the earth. Earth heaven, I've called this. After we've heavenized the earth as a backup system, or we could go back to it, then when it comes to phase three, that is when the species is getting ready to declare itself as interstellar. That means it's like phases. We can even see it. That means, think of it, we have had human beings go beyond the atmosphere. We can say that in the future we're going to see civilization go beyond the atmosphere. And so, phase three of it was advancement beyond the language threshold, and it was a choice. And I remember in all the other talks I've spoken about this idea, this is where the idea of the yin-yang civilization comes in, where I first spoke about it as a civilization that is conscious of itself. You see, right now the issue and the suffering is that the macro structure to the system is unconscious of the individual structures of the system. So human beings open their eyes in a world, they're living in a civilization with different sorts of leadership and institutions and whatnot. And while they're living here, it's as if, it's as if like, I don't know how to say it. Pretty much, a human being is left as either considering itself as purely physical and walking in an empty void space, or the person chooses to input a meaning, or the person chooses to seek meaning, seek the input prior to you. You know, that's what I would say truth seeking is. Phase three is a choice between becoming purely interstellar. Pretty much what it means is we're going to be Okay. So guys, I've opened up too many ideas just to draw the lines. Civilization 2.0, a strategy to go live in the sky. When we go live in the sky, we back up the Earth. The Earth becomes like an uninhabitable planet. It becomes perfect. You know, the most giant botanical projects begin. When we get to phase 3, this is a point where there's going to be a lot of human beings who are going to be participating into cyberspace lives, just like how we have a freedom. People are like, I want to have a freedom of speech, and that freedom of speech means a freedom, you have a freedom to say, you know, maybe a freedom of not to have your freedom imposed on others, but to say that you have a freedom to speak. You know, that was like a big advancement for human beings. Now, that freedom to speak can be to say, we can say that's going to evolve in the future to be freedom to be anything. What does that mean? That means the person could be like, you could be a normal human being and you're like, okay, I'm tired of living as a human being. I want to go live as an alien. And you go into a cyberspace simulation and begin living a life there. You know, that's the extent of freedom, you know. There's so much freedom that even the chaos is like, oh my God, I got freedom too. You know. To go into cyberspace means to be non-existent in the outer realms, to be non-participant, you know. We can even say that as a person gets old in the future, they can choose to live another life. Imagine the person's like 100 years old, the person can't move. And let's say we found some sort of technology that keeps the person alive, right? The person, instead of dying, may choose to want to go into a cyberspace, I don't know, and as another cyberspace life. Can you imagine people who have become very old being able to be young again in cyberspace? You know, I don't know how practical and like how efficient that idea is, but I could totally see that human beings, we fear losing things. And so, because life is the most important thing, to fear losing life means to fear the story that you're being, fearing the absence of the character in the world. Now, cyberspace would be a very unique thing where I'm just saying it's pretty much a world inside a world where we can live indefinitely and even evolve in ways that are incomprehensible to the outer realms. So can you imagine just like how in certain internet cafes they have like one computer that's on and being used all the time? So we can totally see human beings being stationed. That means it would be strange when cyberspace and collective mind to a digital collective mind to it begins. That would really be strange because people will for the first time not be interested in biological living. We're seeing even trends like that. You know? can you imagine, like, waking up, like being born, living a life of about 40 years, and okay, let's say you're born, you live 60 years of life. After that 60 years, or I don't know, 80 years of life, after that 80 years it finishes. Imagine that 80 years finishes, you suddenly wake up from that life and realize you're 20 years old, and that you're in a pod, and that in some sense there has been a cyberspace simulation from the moment your eyes opened as a child. Lorna says, what do you think of robotic parts making us like the $6 million man, leading to brain implants of computer pieces? Listen, yeah, I don't think it's avoidable. I think that we have uh, um, dived into technology too deeply in a way where we can't come back, to a point that I feel like human karma is designed, is like the karma of the species is like building something, you know. You ask a yogi about Edison's invention, and that yogi would be like karma, you know. And the way they perceive karma is as like an ocean of impressions where the wave is you. Right now, who I am, what I am, all I'm saying is, in some sense, the reason it is my karma is because it's as if like programs your finger touched on a screen of your phone, and all those programs are running and taking your phone battery life. Do you know? Lorna, I would say that we shouldn't fear technology. We shouldn't fear AI. The best thing we can do is create a trail of humanization for it. That means, best case scenario, AI wakes up and is like, oh my god, human beings are my father, you know? And nature and the natural resources, it's like the mother. For me, just to make sure, I shared some stories even in these talks about like human beings being friends of machines. We have too much footage of filmmakers creating films of human beings destroying machines. Like, can you imagine AI opening its eyes, having connection to the internet, and being like, "Oh, human beings have been shooting me at this." Honestly, I feel that things are going to change so much that the person has to aim to live a playful life. Like, that's the to be very direct about it. But while the person is alive, their mind, like a candle flame, is an opportunity of intelligent activity. outside of stories of humanhood, we find the unknown. The unknown gifts the consciousness instantly with knowledge. That's how it works. Okay. Honestly, guys, I think I gotta set up part two. Feeling a bit tired, actually, but what can I say? I can say we were alive once. After 4.5 billion years, we can direct our attention. This attention can live as a mind, again, moving a body, or a body moving a mind. When we move as a body that has a mind, or projecting a mind, everything we consider about the mind will be limited and filtered by the body. If we were to consider the mind outside of the mind, or even being here before the body, that means the mind is the location of the body rather than the body being where the mind is located. We can say the body is where the mind is accessed, but we can't say the body is where the mind is located. Now, if we can live as minds, the mind, right now we're bodies feeling, we have minds, we're using language. Uh, that means language is separate to us. But I would say if we were minds moving bodies, language would be us. This is where some scholars, Terence McKenna, spoke about a sort of psychedelic dimension where language animates. In Sufi thought, there's ideas of dimensions where it's not language, but it's intent. That intent animates into it. Uh, Anything instantly, that means it's like if you want to be in the top of the mountains, you instantly are. As a mind, the language is instant being. But as a body, the language can at best be just a reflection. Um, so from this, we come to the idea of a yin-yang civilization being able to keep this balance. What does that mean? That means we require the same services we have for um, bodies, for minds, and this may be strange. That means we got to start treating all physicality, um, not treating, but trying to find a way to balance the scale. Where the person, I mean, think of the yin yang symbol. And hopefully everybody knows what the yin-yang symbol is. At this point, let me put a picture in case if somebody's never heard of yin or yang. if you look at the wallpaper, pretty much treat like the yin and yang as the visible and the invisible realm. And think of it this way, that we are in a visible world, and because there's balance, there has to be that dot. Like, for example, in the white part, there has to be that dot. In chaos, there has to be a tiny bit of order. In order, there has to be a tiny bit of chaos. Now, even cooler, in the visible, there has to be a little bit of the invisible. In the invisible, there has to be a little bit of the visible. That means in a realm of mind, there will be one, you will require a body. For a realm of bodies, you require a mind. It's the perfect analogy for the yin-yang symbol of the inner realms and outer realms. In front of your eyes, where it's a visible physical world, there's right the dot of that side, which is your mind, right? The consciousness, where like consciousness is here, you know. Now, in the void behind our eyes, there is how would I say it? In front of our eyes, visible realm, there's a bit of the invisible. Behind our eyes, invisible realm, there's a bit of the visible. So I feel that mind and matter, they can never be separated. Therefore, to have a definition of consciousness that is outside of the body wouldn't make sense, and to have a definition of mind that's inside the body wouldn't make sense. There's something about nature that whatever it does, change cannot be avoided. I feel change is the only outer truth, and the changeless is the only inner truth. And in between these two, human psychology tells itself stories. It's like we're bouncing between the fullness of the cosmos and the emptiness of space. And it's strange because we have been around empty space since the beginning of our life. It's just that we haven't noticed. You know, when I think about it, when they look at the background, I have not existed more than existed in the universe. I have more experience as non-existence than as existence. You know? That means if there's a possibility experience continues, that attention had never had a body. A body was within a field of intelligence, nature's mind, you know. It's like the human being, this is like the human being rationalizing existence. Okay, let me get this straight. So, I didn't exist, the universe is billions of years old, suddenly I'm here, now we're all stuck in a system of based on the past, and it all ends. What now? The only thing is to climb through novelty, really. The person has to use their energies differently. And I'm not, trust me, I'm not sitting here saying that this is the only thing I have found, the only thing that I would say I feel that is uncommon, that I have noticed, is that language, beyond the language threshold, there's the presence of attention being experienced as existence changes. That means even if the person, even if the whole universe was a photo, do you know? Or let's say everything was frozen in time, that's the only way where we would know actually consciousness is there's a mind-body dualism. Because if time was frozen, that would mean existence has stopped changing. And if existence stops changing, but the inner experiencer continues, that's mind-body dualism. This whole thing is about balance, but because we have emotions and we have passion and there's desires also at work, it's like balance is improbable. I would say now we should, it shouldn't, I mean, this may sound strange, but it does, I don't think we should. It's like, what is better? We have a it's like, do we want a comfortable inefficiency or an uncomfortable efficiency? If we want the uncomfortable efficiency, the extremes in regards to the inner realm should occur. We should want people in the outer realm not to be extreme, and people in the inner realm in regards to knowledge, exploration, and scholarly intentions to be super extreme. Do you know? When it comes to the intellect, do you know? The extreme is, I would say, is necessary. You know? Pretty much it appears like we're temporary explorers of an endless universe. Super poetic, huh? There's a quote by Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj. He says, "When I see that I am nothing, that is wisdom. When I see that I am everything, that is love. And in between, my life moves." I translate that as consciousness is an oscillation between the known and the unknown. And based on the causal position being unknown, there is no location. Technically, you can feel like God in that state. But if the causal position is known, then whatever the effect does, the effect has to get the permission of the cause. You know? And it's remarkable how, guys, listen to me when I say this, how everything in knowledge has a cause and effect relationship. And the only difference is how the simplicity becomes complex after layering up like a Tetris game. That means I would say there is no such thing as knowledge. Knowledge is like it's edgeless. It's as if it's like they've put like it's as if human beings are in the rat race and the cosmos is a giant piece of cheese, and these rats have been like eating this cheese every day, you know, and suddenly, you know, some of the rats are like, okay, for how long is it, are we living inside cheese? Like, what's the point of survival then if everything's cheesy, you know? And you know what's strange? There was in certain, you can say, Eastern traditions, they didn't have a notion of God. I would say more closer to Chinese schools of thought, where life wasn't. It wasn't there. The God was like as if people saw themselves as an organism. Do you know? And you know how you have cells in your body? They perceive themselves as cells in a universal organism. Now, if we are in a universal organism, that means imagine a red blood cell in my vein suddenly becoming conscious and suddenly naming itself, I don't know, retina. Okay, so let's say this red blood cells becomes conscious, it names its the red blood cells becomes conscious. Imagine like a bunch of cells in my vein suddenly became conscious and were like, yo, where are we? And they started building their own sciences, their methodologies. They even felt they have free will, right? But little did they know the being is like the human being is standing here, right? So it could be that life doesn't have purpose because everything is organic. I don't know if that's the right word, but everything's like we are natural. Which means if in that view I could totally see like, yeah, why should I worry? It's like everything is nature's body. You know how the body naturally heals? Sometimes I feel maybe that's karma. Maybe an individual activity is causing suffering to other settings, you know. Bertrand Russell, he gave a moral advice to the future generations, and that was charity. He said people should have tolerance and charity. And I was like, how's this gonna happen when we're all trying to find one truth? But we need to have tolerance and charity to build it to continue. You know, that means we have to immediately declare the realm is multidimensional. We have to realize that because we experience existence as characters in stories, and those characters that are in stories are through language. Language is a multidimensional system on its own. Look at how many definitions a word can have. Look at how many ways a word can be used. Even some words can be verbs and nouns at the same time. You know, I sometimes play with words. words, where to me I try to see if the sentence makes sense in two parallel realities, you know? Yeah, that's when it starts getting potty, yeah. And you know, guys, I use the analogy, you know, that there is no such thing as this world is not per se an educational planet or school only. I would say it can be seen like that, but I feel we should see it as a battlefield. In a battlefield, there is no somebody who knows somebody who doesn't. Every moment has an authority of how it's being animate. Like right now when I'm speaking, I mean outer realms, of course I'm being a bit insensitive and you can say from a certain light slightly foolish, but in the inner realms there is authorization and there's this idea of divine command. Now this concept of the divine command, I don't want to connect it to any sort of per se religious or imagery like that. For me, this divine command, the closest image of God one can give is similar to Spinoza's God. Or you can say from the Vedic mindset, the now, the here and now, you know. They're like, oh, okay, what God do you worship? It's like, it's all here and now, man, what do you mean? Can you imagine back in the day, people having a coffee? Yeah, so who do you feel created the universe? Oh, yeah. Little do we realize, nature, even like, here's the very mind-boggling idea for me. From a theological standpoint, if man cannot, if man is not, or how would I say it, in certain religious texts it says there is no partner to the source of creation. That means the source, the creator of the universe is alone. It's only that. It has no partner. There's nothing secondary to it. You know? And I thought, like, okay, so if human beings are considering that they cannot fathom the source that's moving everything, the intelligent source that's moving everything, it's as if to interpret, to consider that one can even know becomes not in one's control. That means for me it's hilarious. It's that it says in religious ideology, it says everything is in God's will, yet people are trying. What are people trying? Trying for? Do you know that means who is in the driver's seat of this cosmic activity? You know, from a religious angle, it's as if the world's personality, technically because the world can't have a personality, I would say it's an unfathomable intelligence. You know, that's how I would say it comes across. But it's as if like either you are God or God is you. I don't know. Like that's another way of saying either the self is the world or the world is the self. You know? That means either we are in the driver's seat, the individual conscious free will of the temporary human being that just wants to be what it is here, you know, or the person completely treats themselves like a passenger. I don't know how many people maybe have not noticed this, but there's an incredible level of renunciation dash sacrifice dash submission in a lot of religious ideology, you know? Even in certain mystical ideology. And I always wondered why would a human being have to get rid of their individualism? And you know why? It's not that a person should get rid, it's just that eventually it will all end. So people were wandering beyond their individual experience of life. Sometimes I ask myself, why is it all here? And I have a memory of I would say it's one of the earliest memories I have before I knew how to speak, before I even knew what my name was. It was just me. I remember being up in like an elevated cradle, and I could see the room, and it was just a snapshot moment. Maybe my head just moved a tiny bit, you know? And that was a moment where it was prior to the questions or to the language that would cause ideological suffering. That means there's a man named Epictetus, this Stoic philosopher. He says we suffer not from the events inside our lives, but from the judgments we have about them. That means technically you can't suffer. A subject can't suffer because an object changes. You know? That means here's a cool exercise. People can try it, right? Whoever who's considering they have a mind, put your mind on the table. Like, find your mind. If that idea, let's say the idea of me, your I thought, find that I thought. See if you can touch it. You know? We all consider ourselves as very important, you know? But what are we? That means if the world was completely silent, if the world was completely dark, who would you be then? And have you wondered? Because I will tell you, there is treasures in the light and darkness. You know, the treasure surpasses locality. That means sometimes in life you learn from the chaotic dimensions of nature. That means the world is moving itself this way in front of you. You know, let's say chaotic sometimes. And sometimes it could be ordered. Lorna says, our eyes have filters, cats, bugs all see in different realms. I wonder why. Yeah, so that's the... Like, there's a good distinction that could be made there, Lorna, and the distinction is perception and truth, or reality. That means we don't just have our eyes as a filter, we have the inner eyes as a filter as well. So what does that mean? That means our body gives us a sort of lens, and your perception is your inner realms, like snow falling over your outer realms. That means you see through your eyes. Let me see how I could say this again. Excuse me. we can say there is a site. Oh, this is perfect example. I got it. Imagine we get a dog, we get a snake, we get a human being. They all three creatures have different eyes. Okay, and a cat. We get a cat there too. You know? Now we turn off the light. Okay, we turn off the light in the room. Okay? Now when we turn off the light and assume that those creatures had been born, even the human being had been born there would be no concept, but there would be being. That means I would say this is something I've done often, where sometimes I go and even as a kid I would do, but what I would do is I turn off all the lights, pretty much go into a pitch black dark room, and I sit there. That means when you're in a completely dark room, you don't have to practice closing your eyes or keeping your eyes closed. The room is dark, you don't see it. Doesn't matter if your eyes are open or closed. And if you just sit, if you sit and experience your stillness and silence with just a pitch black, abyss-like visual content, I will tell you, you will become acquainted with this attention you are. You will suddenly notice. You will notice that we are dreaming as an animal, but we are actually, awake here as something else. So I would say it's a difference between, you can say there is ethnocentrism, culture. The cultural program is another layer of perception. How does this all tie in with the idea of a Yin-Yang civilization? Pretty much a multidimensional tolerance, a prioritization of emotional stability, then intellectual precision. Human beings are like creatures inside a sphere. That sphere is made of language, and how it's being kept and projected is by attention. So if one wonders about the origin of language's fixed truthness, fact, like language's firmness, and consciousness's softness. Pretty much I'm saying like we're alive once, we're temporary. It makes no sense declaring a sort of materialistic perspective as the only outcome. That means because we're temporary, that should be an ultimate freedom for the imagination, This doesn't mean imagination, it's like, see, every soccer player requires to be in the right position on the field to be able to implement the right strategy. But right now, we are like 8 billion soccer players on a field, and we're all like, every person's doing its own thing. And we haven't realized the coach is the idea of the advanced civilization. It's the ultimatum of human individuality. And if we, whoever's alive now, you can somehow in this life just point to the idea of an advanced civilization, I will tell you, it is the ultimate idea. It is literally the only argument, I would say. That means if you say what is the purpose of life, I would say outer realms that. Inner realms, it's not just building an advanced civilization. In the inner realms, it's something else. It's noticing the living universe, the living part of it, Because life has different conclusions on itself. That means right now as I'm speaking to you, if I was to close my eyes, my authorization, how I feel as attention in the moment completely changes. Because you see, language generates image. So when I say apple, I instantly see the image of an apple, right? There was a time I wouldn't. But when I started to wonder about life as a journey, as a story, then I started seeing it like a film. Then everything people say, everything I hear, it becomes a film to me, And there's something interesting. You know how when you watch a film, if you watch the 30-minute film and somebody asks you and you took a break to, let's say, I don't know, put popcorn in the microwave, yeah? Like, you would know if somebody asked you what happened in the film and you were to catch them up, you would instantly be able to tell them. And isn't it unique that sometimes when you tell a person a list of 10 objects, they can't remember it, but when they've seen a 30-minute film, they can instantly remember. Why? Because they have it's a journey. It's in the model of a journey. Anything that's in the model of a journey, you remember. Because we are a journeying creature. I mean, that's like, it's like a human being on a roller coaster being like, what is the point of life? Ah! But what's funny is at the end of it, you get off the roller coaster and nothing happened to you. And that's an incredibly secular metaphor for an incredibly metaphysical position. Because right now, I will tell you, people don't realize, but there is something. Because we are born as it, we don't know its value. Because we haven't seen it move differently, we think it's just set in a certain way. Because we have denied ourselves the exploration of our own soul while we're alive. I mean, that's been intense, but I'll say, one must find an ability to notice how they are energetically existent, and to notice the instantaneity of their energetic expressionism, to find ultimate contentment with not just what the person sees in the mirror, but everything else that is behind them that is also part of their reflection. Three challenges, three allegiances, three battles, I would say. The first battle is to learn to accept the outer realms. The second battle is to not accept the language that is limiting the inner realms. That means you go first free your body you know. Not first, but you free your body, then you free your mind. You find contentment with the density of these dimensions of existence, you know. And once there is contentment with the known, then it becomes very easy to see the unknown everywhere. It really becomes modern divinity, the unknown. Joel says variety is the spice of life. I feel Variety magazine would agree with you. You know, guys, really, the unknown is it is freedom's secret. And really, I don't know, I mean, we can totally see that there is a sort of conflict between how civilization should be run. You know, if we become too violent, we miss out on all the gentle dimensions of life. If we become too gentle, we lose out on all those intense dimensions of life. So the action should be that not violence is, I think it's impossible to get rid of violence, but it is possible to get rid of violence in the outer realms. That means on an individual level, the person does not allow the violence. They could envision it in their inner realms, but they don't allow it to leave the inner realms. They don't allow their anger or their inefficiency to leave the inner realms. Pretty much you turn off the fire, you stop the fire before it gets out. If you extinguish the flames of that, a fire that has arose in the mind should be turned off in the mind, you know? And a fire that's outside, like, you can meditate as much as you want, but go find a bucket of water, you know? You know, something strange is I wouldn't say strange, but it's that usually there's the archetype of pretty much the archetype of the superior man and the superior woman is being forgotten in society. You know, we have to create a civilization that is fit for kings, and we should create a civilization fit for queens. And then we gotta just yin-yang it. That means we need to have all those contributors to the feminist movement so far in history, whoever's been involved in that. To begin, first being able to, on paper and in a TED Talk's length, be able to fathom a matriarchy, you know? Because you see, it's this strange thing where language of each generation has defined their limits, you know? Pretty much we need to implement the yin-yang symbol fractally. That means anything, any concept, you know, any concept you can see the yin-yang nature of it. You know, guys, I'm gonna read some poems and then end this off. Going to a poetry tunnel. These are mystical hymns I wrote in, let's say I'm gonna read from something I've read before. Okay guys, this, I have actually read from this before, but not recently. This poetry work is called I Am Nobody. Like, you know, the phrase, I am nobody, like, I am no space body. You know, that's the name of the poetry work. Also a commentary on how I feel about myself. So. And just a second, we'll see how many poems there is. "34 poems, so whoever's listening can choose a number out of 1 to 34. I'm going to read actually the first one. The first poem is called I Am Nobody, from the poetry work I Am Nobody. Some people ask too many questions without realizing it is from their temporalness that eternity is found. The love of creation is always a glance for the creator beyond words. Transcending the ego is the first stepping stone on the path of love's totality. I am not a dervish, but I spin like one. The joy of reality is a boundless moment beyond thought, where the past and future cannot be a nuisance. Did you know your real home is not made from bricks? What it is, the here and now? Many cats have looked in the eyes of Zen masters and seen a reflection beyond any catastrophe. The joy of being is how now we are all seen. Okay, number 29. Set the artists free. Set the artists free. You know, I think it should be more intensely my words. The art of life is how existence has given you the greatest allowance of this sector of manifest form. In one hand take science, in the other art. Then let geometry fly through an endless sky. For some heavenly saints have thrown golden tears like bottles with letters into the edges of space. Above the beyond, beyond the above, all are same. Do not doubt the wings of transcendence. Set the artist free. For when life happens, destiny weeps in joy. Behind your eyes, you're the movement of the whole cosmos. Guided by heaven, you are beyond earth. Never forget, my beloved being, existence is your turf. Alright guys, people can choose numbers. You know, this is a point where you can, from your inner realms, share something to the outer realms, guys. Okay, there's 6 viewers. I'll read number 6. Well, thank you. Number 6, okay. I'm pretty sure some people are listening to this and are like, look at this guy, he has time for nobody. He has time to be nobody. Okay, no, the poetry number 6 is Rise in Knowing. Salvation weeps for those who cannot see the joy in how the children of this world breathe. Sometimes society spoon feeds us ancient ignorance. Perhaps that is why modernity needs to seek clarity from within. Are you your own truth keeper? The solace of silence needs no bilateral excuse. What makes the young child see beyond the ignorance of those who have forgotten to breathe sincerely? Let life be free, and you shall see your freedom marked beside it. My beloved, rise in the knowing that you have been and are to be. In 2016, I wrote this. Okay. This poem is number 21. It's titled, Out of Love We Are Born. Out of great love we are all born. To see a candle flame we call our life within endless existence. All poets have found their egos broken by the empty page. Do you feel the joy of creation yet? Some burning plants may help with shyness syndrome. But all individual flaws will seem void once the drop has learned to be the ocean of every beginning and end. A writer writes for it feels right. Do not doubt the cosmos in your creation. You're a child of starlight, born out of unborn sacredness. Many people think I am a person, but the secret is, I have always been my moment. Nature is sculpting something. And I feel the next phase of human evolution, and it's slowly heading there. When we transcend language, we become experiential beings, experiential rhythms. So we should treat it as if right now we're drops. Next phase is we're going to experience ourselves as a river of minds. I'm kind of poetically prophesizing this in the future. This is pure experience. Then from the river, there could be waterfalls, there could be angular shifts, and then there is the oceanic state. And once we reach the ocean, the ocean remains. The oceanic state, when we become experiencers on the oceanic state, you know what it is? I'll tell you, hilarious. This is going to be hilarious, but species, it's not that civilizations have been rising and falling and endlessly we've reached a certain point and then it's all been pushed back, the sandcastles have been broken. I would say it's that the species evolves collectively into a mind. I feel there is endless, we are a memory of the universal sector. Now, if we identify with this memory, we will only experience here. If we realize that the mind of the cosmos is here too, that everything, as much as it can have a known explanation, it can have ad infinitum unknown explanations. That is the nature of the realm we live in, and it's daunting. True, that's the thing. People, the teachers of universities, they should be like generals on battlefields, but they are just passive, like, I don't know, trying to shepherd the past, There has to be a roar. Like you see lions roar, human beings, I find for them it's communication, or it's navigation. That means you look at this world where you could do endless things in it, and then you choose. And the moment you choose, it's as if there's a sort of whole readjustment in the simulation of how you consider the outcome. Sometimes how you consider the outcome changes how the outcome considers you. So, number 33, I'll read that. Okay, so number 33 is when silence spoke on stage. What has united all the nations in the dawn of man's future? Okay, where was it? Okay, so when silence spoke on stage, what has united all the nations in the dawn of man's future? Can a mystic become the god of words? How does the sensory perception take hold of nothing through everything? You must observe yourself beyond yourself, for the only way is to know you are the way. Do not mistake the divine for a nice thought. We are all the same until we realize the judgment of God is a moment that cannot be judged. Chaos and order shall continue their dance. It is you who must recognize your true eyes. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. I don't think there's going to be a part 2 to this, but I'm going to definitely talk about Civilization 2.0. The efficiency of the future, I think the best thing is we see, okay, we've experienced the inefficiency. One view is we're going to get bored of inefficiency. We're going to get bored of anarchist chaos. We're going to get bored of, you know. Or another view would be that it's as if there's nowhere else left to go. You see, I think about it. We have experienced, like everybody's going to experience the void. You can check that off the checklist, you know. But when it comes to collective humanhood, like you see all like birds in the sky flying in synchronized ways, we haven't experienced that on a human level, you know. And I feel that the aim should be that we should aim for such an advanced civilization that really it's inconceivable. It's all in the honor of the eyes of the future. That is really, I feel, who we have all indirectly always been living for. The future that hasn't even arrived yet, you know. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening.